Welcome to Simply Caroline, a podcast dedicated to women empowerment where we will discuss a bunch of different subjects such as life, parenting, love, business, money, relationships, healing, recovery, addiction, entrepreneurship, and so much more. A podcast I'll do my best to keep simple, fun, and relatable and bring you tools to help you better your life. So thank you for being here. And here's your host, myself, Caroline Blanchard. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This week, I have another amazing guest, Gretchen Heinen. How are you today?
Good. How are you? Oh my gosh, I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being here. I know you have such a busy schedule, but you always make time for, little requests like mine.
Oh,
Please come and chat with us.
I love you. I've loved you since the minute I met you, so I was so happy to be here.
Thank you, and likewise. So I asked Gretchen to come on today because just like she said, like when I met her, I was just like, wow, I fell in love with her. I fell in love with her energy, her positivism, and also just everything she stands for. And, there's one thing that I admire in life, whether I agree with what the person stands for or not. I admire someone who has their own values, who are, really grounded in it and stand for them, regardless of what people think or say. And that's one of the things that when I met her, I was just like, wow, she's a strong woman. So Gretchen is a very, very successful businesswoman. And just on that, we could talk for quite a while with the awards and the, hitting this and hitting that and making this much figures. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. You'll have to visit our website to know more about that. What we're going to talk about today is that Gretchen is doing all of her business faith-based. And I'm going to stop talking there and let you explain, what does that mean?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. It always feels so good. Words of affirmation are one of my love languages. So I'm always like, thank you. Well, I've been in business for 20 years, and right before the pandemic, so about mid 2019, early 2020, I just felt this calling to bring my faith into my business. And it was, at first it was a whisper, things always start as a whisper. And then it became like a drum beat. And then it became something that like kept me up. And so that's how I knew. I was like, this is the direction I have to go. But I was I have been a really faith-driven person since I was about 10 or 11 years old. So I found my faith, my Christian faith, at a Bible camp when I was 11 years old. And I remember praying and asking God to just come into my life and to just be in my life. I didn't even know what that really meant, but I knew I wanted to like have him just be my guide. And I cried when I said that prayer. And I couldn't really realize why I was crying, but now I understand that was like the Holy Spirit just like coming in and just living in me, and in a figurative sense. And so that's always been a part of my life. But as a business person, I never brought it in because I was like, well, I don't want to turn people off or exclude people or make people who have different beliefs feel bad. So I sort of like ignored that feeling for a long time. And then when it became so loud, I was so afraid to do it because I was afraid I wouldn't make any money. Like, that's the truth. I was like, well, if I do this and then I become some like religious freak on the internet, like, what if I don't have any clients? What if this like doesn't work? What if? And I just got to this point where I was just surrendered that, I just surrendered the outcome. And I just trusted that if this is what God was guiding me to, that I just needed to trust that this would work out. Yeah. So I just pivoted everything. I had to rebrand. I changed everything in the company. All the websites changed. Every single thing in my company changed in a 1 month period.
Wow, what a jump and what a risk, because I get it. When you have your own business and you take a risk like that, you can also take the risk to just say goodbye to your income. And so it's very courageous, and congratulations for that. and you and I are from the same generation. And I was raised with, there's two subjects that you never talk about: politics and religion.
Yes.
That's it. So it's like when I started to like going into public or, business or whatever, in my mind, I was always like, no politics, no religion. That's it. And so bringing it and identifying yourself as, I have faith and I'm totally cool with that. It's very courageous, but I find it amazing as well because, I'm not in the same belief as you. I do respect you 100%, and I respect any form of faith. But like I was telling you in pre-interview, I've always been anti-religion and anti-faith because faith for me was religion, and religion was organized religion. And, I had bad memories and traumas attached to it. But lately, I don't know if it's the age or the gray hair, we'll talk about that later, but, I started a journey into balancing my life. And I realized that in the faith area, I was scoring extremely low, 11 on 100 to be more precise. So that was the part of my life that I was scoring the lowest. And after listening to, so many videos and information on it, I realized you need to believe in something. You need to believe in something bigger than yourself, because otherwise the world is on your shoulders. And that's a pretty heavy load to carry. So, Gretchen, can you tell us, what did faith do for you? That's such a broad question, but for you,
yeah. Well, I first want to just acknowledge your courage to talk about this is so great. Seriously, you should be very proud of yourself, because there's so many people who aren't even willing to admit that maybe that's an area they want to grow in, because it can really open you up to transparency. I don't like to use the word vulnerable because that feels to me like a scary, I'm not safe word, but transparent, where you're see-through and people can see you, the real you, and just knowing that the real us is always accepted. To me, that's the root of faith, is that God accepts us no matter what, no matter what we do or say. It's almost like a birthright of worthiness that we're born with. That's how I see God. And so for you to just be totally open that you want to grow in that area is so beautiful. So way to go. And I'm so glad we're talking about this. So I think for me, faith is well, there's a verse in the Bible, and since that's my point of reference, I'll go there. That says that, faith is things that we have hope for that we can't see. So that's the definition of it, in the Bible, is having hope in something that you can't see. And I always say that faith is the edge of my limit. So faith doesn't really begin until I'm at the edge of my limit, right? I know how to brush my teeth. I know how to make $100,000. I know how to buy a car and a house and have a baby and raise a kid and deal with your kid doing things that are illegal. And, I've been through that. I know how to handle all those things. I know how to handle a fight in my marriage. I know how to handle a kid having a temper tantrum. I know how to deal with salty people. But there's things in my life I don't know how to handle. And, when you're stepping out into something that you've never done before, or you've never seen done in your family before, or in your generation before, that's where faith starts. That's where we start to have faith in something that we haven't seen yet, and have hope for something we haven't seen yet. So that's how I like to describe the purpose of faith, is this eternal, perspective on something different in your life, and not just I'm going to have more money or cooler things or a better life, but a belief that no matter what, I have, I'm saved, I'm rescued, I'm taken care of, I'm held in whatever I need to be held in.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that I always envied a bit from, everyone that I know who are strong believers. I always thought they looked so much more peaceful than me. There was less anxiety. And, I'm coming to discover it's because, first of all, anxiety is, thinking about your future and not knowing what's going to what's going to happen because you feel like you want an answer. You feel like you want a clear picture, a drawing of like exactly what's coming. So there's no faith into just something amazing is going to happen, or something, you know, I'm going to be okay, or whatever it is. But faith to calm you. But faith, like you said, is believing in something that is not there. You know, it's, you're not seeing it yet. So you need to imagine it and believe it's going to happen. And of course, there's a bunch of different faith, but the base of it is all the same, is believing in something bigger than you. And honestly, I've only been doing it for a few months, but it did calm down the anxiety so much, like so much, because now it's like I trust. You know, I'm not sure 100% yet what I trust, but I do trust that it's going to be okay. And so if someone wants to, you know, like me, who didn't believe in anything, if someone wants to start evaluating where they are at, or, you know, do I need this in my life, or should I have that in my life? What's your recommendation?
Pray. Literally just start praying. And what I mean by that is just praying that God would like reveal himself to you, right? And so I personally, that's how my faith started. So that's my answer is that way. Is like I didn't know you know, what I would end up believing of what in the Bible, or, you know, what I was going to end up believing, right? Like I didn't know that. But at that moment when I was just like, I just know that I want to have God in my life, right? And so I suppose if somebody is listening to this and they don't believe in a God per se, you know, it might be different for them and they might find a different route to take. But for me, it was just asking. It was literally just saying, like, I've seen people who've I've really seen grow in their faith start by just literally saying things like, okay, God, if you're real, like, I need to feel you. I need you to show up in my life. Like, I need a sign. I need something. And you will be so surprised if you just start that, even if it's a journal, right? Like, just start writing in a journal, talking to someone other than you, you know, and you don't even have to start out by calling it Dear God. You can literally just write and talk to, well, you are talking to God, in my opinion, but, you know, just ask and seek. That's always what I say to people, is like, just start talking out loud to this person that you may or may not even know is real. And I will tell you, things will start showing up in your life. It will happen. Answers will start coming.
Yeah, I have a really close friend, and I'm not going to say his name, so he can be mad that I'm sharing his story. But, you know, I've always seen him as a strong and tough guy. And after a while of knowing each other and getting closer, he told me that, you know, he's like, I don't believe in God, but I do believe in something. So for him, what he decided that he would believe in is love. And he said, I really decided that it was love, and I gave her the identity of a woman, and I called her Lulu. And every single morning, he basically talks to her out loud. He talks to her like for 20 minutes. He has his routine, and that 20 minutes is just a discussion between her and him. And for him, it brought him so much peace. But because, like me, he was really kind of anti-religion. So, and unfortunately for us, the word God can have a negative connotation. So we choose not to use it, even if we recognize at some point that it may be that, you know, we choose not to use the word. And that's totally fine, because it's not about a word. It's about what it's going to bring to your life. But when he said that, when that person told me that he had that ritual as well, I was just like, yeah, really time for me to, you know, look at my faith and work on that, because I believe that, you know, especially as business people, mothers, wives, we have so many other things to think about, that if someone doesn't really stop you and make you conscious of where are you at in your faith, and if you're not open to hearing it, you won't be thinking about it. And a lot of us will throw ourselves into self-development, trying to find peace in there, but quite often the peace is in faith. So
Yeah. Yeah. And if it's okay, I'd love to touch on just trauma in the church because it's been brought up. And
absolutely.
I just really would encourage any listener and you to um, separate, if you can, what God might be versus what someone has shown you, right? Because if you really study, like if we go like way back, and I'm talking like hundreds, thousands of years back, right? And we really look at history from a perspective, the Christian religion especially, but religion in general, was used in such an abusive way, starting from like literally 0 AD. You know, if you even before that, like for example, the early European history, you know, the formation of the Catholic Church alone, the history of that was for political and land gains back in, I think, I don't know what year, I think probably like around 500 AD or around there. You know, when all of that was happening, it was literally the stories that were meant to, whatever God meant it for, right? Which I think was light and beauty and goodness, right? And healing and saving, whatever that story was going to be told, it ended up being told something totally different in the name of power and money and greed. And then that became the history that like took forward. So if you really want to understand God, we almost have to like take anything we've ever learned about him from other people, churches, you know, and I've had some really negative encounters in Christian churches that scared me. And as a person who was really strong in my faith, I thought to myself, gosh, what would a person who wasn't strong in their faith, how would this impact them? This would totally traumatize them. And that doesn't even get into the abuse situations, which are definitely not how God intended things to be. You know, like now we're talking about like people doing criminal activity in the name of God and causing so much harm. So I just encourage anyone who's had ever experienced abuse or ever experienced trauma. I did this even myself. I went through like a program that talks about like healing trauma, just so I could separate any idea that someone had planted into me that tied religion to abusive behavior, you know, and just separate that out so that I could see like, who do you say I am, God? Like, what do you say about me? You know, and that's where I really, and even today I was listening to a sermon that totally changed my belief about like our birthright and what God has given us inside already. And I'm 42, right? So I've been believing this for 30 years and I just now had like a new revelation about this. So it's like there's always room for it to change what someone has harmed us in the name of religion. There's always room for that to change and for healing to happen. And there's even resources for it. I'll give you some to put in the show notes for people that are specific things to help people who've been through trauma, religious trauma.
And thank you for that. You know, it was so worth mentioning because you're absolutely right. When it's negatively associated, it's really hard to, like for me, inside of me, even if I would want to say that, like I have so many other barriers to break, because even if I would want to say I believe in God, for me that would be so difficult to put out there. Because it would be like denying basically 40 years of what I've believed in. So all of this, it's like, and I get that, you know, it's ingrained in us. So, but for me, like I read a book trilogy that really helped me actually, you know, separate what is man-made and separate what is divine. And I think that that's a bit what you're saying. We have to separate what was man-made because, you know, there's a lot of evil as well into all of this, and that's not what it was meant to be. So, you know, that's the journey I'm on now, but it's clearly always like constant little reminders that I have to tell myself, but it's like any habit or belief or brain wiring, you need to work on that. because we're wired one way, so you need to rewire the other way. Even you just said, like, you're in your faith, and in your faith you just discover something new. And that I love about you, because you're not closed-minded to just, you know, exactly what you believe. You're still open-minded to, you know, there's options even within what you believe. So that I absolutely love. And I really think that, you know, we need some positive, strong feminine leaders like you to follow and see that, wow, it is positive, you know, instead of starting to associate that with all the positivity. And so thank you for doing that. And I'm going to completely switch subject, because people who are watching the YouTube here, and if you aren't, well, go, you're going to make yourself a favor. Gretchen is so beautiful. But we were just talking about that pre-interview, because she decided to let her gray hair show, which for me, when I saw her, I was just like, oh my gosh, it's gorgeous. It looks like it's streaks. And she's like, I'm going to let her say it. Go ahead.
Oh, yes. Yeah, totally. Well, I don't know, I've been dyeing my hair for whatever, 10, 20 years, you know, dyed my hair before I even needed to dye it because it was going gray. And I think like last summer, about a year ago, actually, I just started thinking about, I think it was probably right after I turned 40, you know, and just thinking about like how, I'm not sure what age your listeners are. So if you're younger, you're probably thinking like, I am not going to be this way. I said that about every stage of life. You know, right before you had kids, you're like, I am never going to be the parent who X, Y, Z's. And then you have kids, you're like, oh, whoops. You know, you think like, I'm never going to be the wife who X, Y, Z. Oh, and then it happens. But after turning 40, I just like really felt like this culture of youth, that we are like this idea that we should do anything possible to stay youthful looking. Like it just like bothered my core. And I didn't know why. I couldn't tell if it was like just me trying to be a rebel or not, but I just asked myself this question, like, well, what would it look like if I just let myself age naturally? And I did everything I could to be healthy on the inside and out, but didn't, you know, try to alter my face or my hair. And I just like let myself be natural. Like what could I step into if I did that? And I honestly, I'm on an experiment. I tell people all the time, I reserve the right to wake up tomorrow and put a bunch of Botox in my face and dye my hair. Okay. So like, I reserve that right to change my mind. But I just
fine print.
Yeah, in the fine print. But like, I don't know if they have this in your Target, but in my Target, in the makeup section, there's like this model that's like on this, you know, the like end cap, and she has gray hair, and she's probably in her late 60s or 70s. And she just looks happy and vibrant and beautiful. And every time I go to Target and I'd walk by her, I just would be like, that's what I want. I just want to be able to just be with a full expression of myself, whatever that looks like at whatever stage, and just like be her. And I was telling you before the show, some days I look in the mirror and I look at my gray hair and I'm like, what am I doing? And my daughter, who's 8, my youngest is 8. She's like, Mom, you look so old. Like, could you just dye a little bit? I mean, you're still really pretty, Mom. And I think you're so pretty. This is how she described it the other day. She goes, well, your face just doesn't match your hair. Like your face is really young, but your hair is like old. So it's just not right, Mom.
Ouch.
And what's that?
I said, ouch. And you should record her and play it for her when she's 40.
I know, right? But like, she's so, you know, she's just growing up in the culture that is like saying that youth is so, like, youth matters so much, and or looking or appearing youthful. And I tell her all the time, I say, you know, I hope, you know, when she had that conversation, I said, you know what? I love my hair, and I love who I am, and I love that I get to get older, and it means I'm wiser. It means I know more things. And so sometimes when I look in the mirror, I may see or feel old, but other times I'll look in the mirror and I'm just so proud. I'm like, I was telling you, I was like, look at my hair, and I'm like, I earned this. I earned this through 20 years of entrepreneurship. And like when I do coaching calls and I'll see my gray hair on the Zoom call, I realize like, I know what I'm talking about. Like it has given me like a confidence, because I'm like, these gray hairs are a demonstration that I know what I'm talking about. So like I said, I may change my mind at some point, but it's been a really fun journey this past year. And so far I'm liking it.
You're looking gorgeous, and I envy you, because if I could stop dyeing my hair or even thinking about my hair, I would be like amazing. But I'm not there yet. I'm still like cannot see white hair
And that's
yet.
okay.
But I like what you say about, it's okay to age and do everything you can to stay healthy in natural ways. Accepting to age doesn't mean like you give up everything and you just let yourself die. It means that you just stop using the artificial exterior crutches that we all have and that we're all used to. And I do believe that in our daughters' generation, when they're 40 or 50, at their age, it will be like actually cool to let your hair turn gray, because they will see something else. They will see wisdom and they will see beauty. That's not what we see yet, us, because we, it's difficult. I mean, I can praise any woman who does it, but I'm not ready to do it. So that's just it. And I know that we started talking about faith and now we went to your hair. And it may seem completely unrelated, but for me it's not, because I know how confident you are personally, and that doesn't come alone. One of the things that women struggle the most with is self-esteem and self-confidence. Even if we have no reason to, we we often doubt ourselves, or see everything that is not working, or you have a pimple there and then you look at yourself in the mirror and it's like there's a flashing light on this and that's the only thing you see. We tend to focus on what's not working. And you decided to, not decide, well, I guess it's a decision as well, but your self-confidence is so strong, and it's probably directly related to faith as well. And just letting yourself be, accepting yourself how you are. And that for me is strength. That is success for me. And, because also probably when you start feeling 100% like that, I'm sure you don't have that much anxiety.
Well, I do wake up some days with a to-do list that makes me freak out. So I won't lie about that. But, to your point, this is exactly why I moved my business to a faith-based model, because the self-help wasn't working. It wasn't working in my clients, and I didn't rely on that self-help model. So people would come to me for coaching or for mentorship and helping their business get going. And I always approach things with God faith and God confidence. That's what I call that, where I don't have to believe in myself because I'm tapped into a source that's going to help me figure it out. I don't have to know what step 100 is. I just need to know what I'm supposed to do today, and I always had that, but it didn't come from me. It came from an external place, poured into me through prayer every day and through exercising faith and really reading the Bible in a way that was like, who do you say I am, God? Not what does the pastor or the homily say I am, not what this person says, but who do you say I am, and reading. My favorite thing to do for people who are exploring their faith is like, just go read what Jesus said. Don't read what anyone else said. Just read what Jesus said, right? Whatever came out of his mouth. Matthew 5-7 is the Beatitudes, where he did this Sermon on the Mount, and he just talks about how he clothes us. So we don't need to worry about what we're going to wear. And it's just like such a beautiful passage. And so that's where my confidence always came from. But I would enroll people in my programs who didn't have that kind of faith. And I didn't really talk about faith. I talked about business, but the self-help runs out because we are not meant to fill our own cup. It doesn't work. It will work a little bit and it'll work for some people decades, but at some point in their life, they will realize that there's something beyond themselves, which is where you found yourself in, right? And the new coaching that you're doing with people and realizing that this is part of it. There's a reason why they put that in there. There's a reason why. It's because this stuff about believing in yourself, like when you're on your period, that stuff does not work. Okay. Like it does not work. I don't care. And that's my evidence, and that's my evidence. I'm like, I can say all the mantras I want and meditate for hours. It ain't going to work to just believe in myself on that time of the month. It's just not. And so, when I started incorporating faith, I did have a lot of people leave. My podcast took a huge dive in listeners, and it was okay. I knew that just meant that like I was going to find my people. And so for a year, I rebuilt my audience, and thankfully I had lots of other income streams that were that I could still use while I built my audience, because my business income did go down for that particular area. But then it went up 4 times. Once I had rebuilt the audience, wow. I 4x'd my income from when I was previously working with women. And I believe is because I really got into like my truth. And I think when you're so in your truth and you're willing to be rejected for it, you just can go to bed each night going, I did everything I could today. I gave it my all, and I was myself, and I didn't pretend to be anyone else. And I didn't scroll Instagram and look at other people's reels and feel like a loser. I literally was like, good for her, but that's not me. So that's, to your point, they are blended, the gray hair and the faith is totally connected.
Yeah. And to your point, don't watch Instagram reels when you're in the period. Especially with all the filters now, it's just crazy the amount of filters that there is. But that's a whole other podcast.
I know, obviously. We could do that. We could do a whole show on that.
Yeah, social media. Like I'm going to stop there for that subject, because there's like, since I've started discovering Reel, which is like just a few weeks ago. Yes, I know I'm a dinosaur, but I'm like, wow, you can do this, and wow, you can change your face this much. I can change the color of my eyes, of my hair. Like I did one reel with blue eyes and purple hair. So why? Back in my days, you had to go and try it. You had to go wreck your hair, put them purple, realize it would come out green, realize you messed up, and then move on and never do it again. Now it's like you go on a filter and you're like, oh, that's cool. But what I wanted to say too is that you made a point as well in business, that you took a big drop by believing in, that's what I'm doing and that's where I'm going. But I was listening to someone the other day who she had just finished giving a training on a Zoom, and she showed me she had 3 containers. She had a 1 liter, a 2 liter container. She had a 500 ml container, and she had a small little one that just had about 10 ml of water. And she put 1 drop of food coloring in each. And basically her whole training was about finding your niche is way more productive in business than trying to talk to everyone. And you can try it at home. If you put 1 drop of food coloring in each, you will see that the little container will be like that bright color, and the 2 liter will be really pale, whatever color you put in. And that goes to say that when you're in your truth and you focus exactly on who you want to talk to, you will have more impact than if you try to please everyone. And that too could be a whole other podcast,
Exactly.
But so we're gonna, I'm gonna stop starting other subject right now. I'm just gonna focus on here. So that's my ADD. I'm like a dog with a squirrel. Sometimes, like now, all the squirrels are running, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this. So Gretchen, to close this podcast on faith and on the beautiful you, what would you like to leave people with?
I would tell people to, for the listener, like continue to search, and search your heart, search for your faith, like look for opportunities to learn, and just never, I mean, my biggest thing for people would be to like, and this is because this is my belief system, but it would be to just read a little bit of the Bible and just like, and as a book, as like a book to read it and just let it affect you, right? And you can read other books too. Like when I was searching for my faith, I read the Book of Mormon, I read the Quran, I read the Bible, I read stuff on atheism, I read stuff on evolution. So when I was younger in my faith, like I said that prayer and I found my faith. But then when I went off to college, I was really exposed to like all these different beliefs and ideas. And so then I had to like make it my own. And I did. People are always surprised when I say that, when I like researched all these religions, because I was like, well, here, this is what was told to me, but is that really where I'm going to stay? I don't know. I'm going to research them all. So I would just ask people to search, and make the Bible one of your searches, because you just never know how God's going to speak to you in a new way, even if it's different than how somebody told it to you. So that would be my advice.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I will put all the information with the podcast to reach her, but very fast. What's your website?
Yeah, so our website is networthit.org, and that's where you can find us. And for anyone who's a business owner, we have a free 5-day challenge called dreamsoverscreens.com. So dreamsoverscreens.com, and it helps people to spend less time in that social media scrolling trap and actually spend your time gaining clients. It's 5 days, it's free. It's our favorite way to help the newer woman going after a dream, because it's usually people's biggest barrier is just like, figuring out how to do it without feeling like their mind is clouded by what everyone else is doing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for being here again this week. And I welcome your comments, your suggestions, info@simplycaroline.com. I would love to read what you thought about this podcast. And if you want to hear about something specific, please let me know. Gretchen, it was an amazing pleasure to have you. Thank you so much. And I wish everyone a beautiful week.
Oh, thank you so much.